Three companies are right now fighting to build the diesel outboard that finally replaces gas, and almost nobody at your local marina has ever seen one of them in person. Ox from Sweden, Cox from Britain, and the newest one, Caudwell, bankrolled by a billionaire who made his fortune selling cell phones. Each one builds a roughly 300 horsepower diesel engine that hangs off the back of a boat like a normal outboard. Except it sips fuel, makes truck-like torque, and is supposed to run for years longer than the gas motor you know. On paper, that's the dream every boat owner has quietly wanted for decades. So, here's the question that actually matters. The one this whole video is built around. If these engines are so good, why can you walk into almost any boat dealer in America and not find a single one for sale? There's a reason. It's deliberate, and it's not the reason you'd guess. Because this war was never really about you. Let's start with why anyone wants a diesel hanging off their transom in the first place, because the appeal is real and it's easy to fall for. Diesel fuel packs more energy per gallon than gasoline, so a diesel engine simply goes farther on the same amount of fuel. We're talking 30 to 45% better fuel economy depending on whose numbers you trust. For a boat that burns a lot of fuel, that gap is enormous. Then there's torque. A diesel makes its grunt down low, the way a pickup truck does, which means it shoves a heavy boat onto plane and holds speed in rough water without screaming at high RPM. And there's a safety angle that matters a lot on bigger vessels. Gasoline gives off explosive vapors. Diesel is far harder to ignite, which is exactly why every commercial ship and military vessel on Earth already runs on it. If your boat could carry one fuel for the main engines, the generator, and the outboard, your life gets simpler and safer. So the pitch writes itself. Better range, more pulling power, safer fuel, longer life. The catch, and there's always a catch, is that diesel engines are heavier, more complicated, and a lot more expensive to build than gas ones. For about 100 years, that trade only made sense for big inboard engines buried inside a hull. Getting all that diesel muscle to work in the compact bolt-on shape of an outboard was an engineering problem nobody had cracked at scale. These three companies think they've cracked it. They just went about it in three completely different ways. The one that has gone furthest is Ox Marine, out of Sweden. If you only remember one thing about Ox, remember that they build more diesel outboards than anyone else in the world. While the others are fighting over a single 300 horsepower model, Ox sells a whole range. A 150, a 175, a 200, and the flagship 300. That breadth alone tells you they've been at this longer and built a real business around it. Ox also did something genuinely strange under the cowling, and it's the key to the whole brand. Instead of standing the engine upright like every gas outboard does, they mounted it sideways, horizontally, the same way it would sit in a car. The chief marketing officer at Ox puts it simply: a horizontal engine lubricates itself better, and better lubrication means longer life. That's the entire Ox philosophy in one sentence. Then, instead of running power down through normal gears, Ox uses a carbon fiber belt system, like a giant version of a timing belt, to send the engine's power down to the propeller. It sounds fragile. It isn't. It's designed to absorb the shock of slamming between forward and reverse all day long, which is exactly what a working boat does. The big Ox 300 is built around a BMW inline-6 diesel block, and the numbers are where it gets serious. It makes around 945 Newton meters of torque, which is roughly 697 foot-pounds. That's about 50% more twist than a comparable 300 horsepower gas outboard. It also throws off a 180 amp alternator, more than double what a Yamaha 300 produces, enough to run hydraulics, pumps, even air conditioning straight off the engine. For a working boat, that's not a nice to have. That's a reason to buy. And here's the proof that it actually pays off, straight from an operator. A powered catamaran called Voodoo, running Ox diesels instead of the Yamaha 425s it could have used, reported saving roughly $150,000 a year in fuel. Over 4 years, the owner pegged it nearly $500,000. His exact point was blunt. Fuel is included in his charter price, so the less he burns, the more he keeps. This is the diesel outboard dream made real. But notice who's living it. a commercial operator running massive hours. Hold that thought because it's the whole point. The second company is Cox Marine out of the UK, and Cox is the comeback story of the three. They were first to the milestone everyone wanted. Their CXO 300 went into production back in 2020 as the world's first purpose-built 300 horsepower diesel outboard. And that phrase, purpose-built, matters. Cox didn't grab a car engine and bolt a leg onto it. They designed the thing as an outboard from a blank sheet of paper, which is the harder and more expensive path. It makes about 480 foot-pounds of torque, around 26% more than a gas 300, with service intervals stretching to 250 hours where a gas motor might need attention at 100. But building a great engine and building a great business are two different things, and Cox learned that the hard way. In 2023, the company went through a serious restructuring. They had to secure new funding to keep going, and they tore up their sales strategy, slashing their dealer network down to a smaller group of bigger, stronger partners under a plan they called Fewer, Bigger, Better. Then in 2025, they reshuffled leadership again as they pushed toward mass production. This is a company that has been to the edge and clawed its way back. And I'm telling you that plainly because most videos pretend these brands are all smooth success stories. They aren't. Here's the part that proves Cox survived for a reason. They've now launched a bigger engine, the CXO 350, a V8 they're calling the most powerful diesel outboard in the world. And it's already earned its emissions certification. And in November of 2025, Cox landed the biggest order in its history, 92 engines in a single deal to an undisclosed European military fleet. 92 diesel outboards to one military customer. Tuck that number away because when we get to the twist, it's going to explain everything. The third company is the newcomer, and it's the most interesting from a pure story angle. Caudwell Marine. It's the project of John Caudwell, the British billionaire who built and sold the phone retailer Phones for You, and who used to own a Formula One powerboat racing team. So this is a man with deep pockets and a genuine obsession with boats. And he's pouring both into a diesel outboard called the AX300, due to launch in 2026. Caudwell took yet another path, where Ox leans on BMW and built its own belt drive. Caudwell starts with a cast iron V6 diesel block from VM Motori in Italy, a proven engine builder, and marinizes it. Their commercial director called that iron block bulletproof, and the choice tells you their priority is durability over saving weight. For the transmission and the lower unit, they partnered with ZF, one of the most respected names in drivetrains, who built them a sophisticated twin-clutch system. And like the others chasing the top of this market, Caudwell solved the hardest handling problem with a trick lower unit they called axis drive. The powerhead stays dead still, while only the bottom of the leg swivels, up to 35 degrees each way, so the propeller keeps biting through a hard turn. Before they ever showed it to the public, Caudwell ran the engine through more than 19,000 hours of sea trials and another 4,000 hours in the lab. That's a staggering amount of testing, and it signals they know they're the new kid who has to prove it. But there's one number their own fans flagged the moment it came out, and I won't hide it from you. The Caudwell weighs somewhere around 1,000 to 1,100 pounds. On a boating forum, owners did the math instantly. That's a couple hundred pounds heavier than the Cox for the same 300 horsepower, and one commuter put it bluntly. 1,100 pounds per engine. Better have a good transom. Weight is the diesel outboard's eternal enemy, and Caudwell is carrying the most of it. Now, we get to the twist. The thing that ties all three of these companies together and answers the question I opened with. Look back at who's actually buying these engines. Ox openly focuses on commercial fishing, law enforcement, rescue, military, and towing. The proof story was a commercial charter cat. Cox just sold 92 engines to a military fleet. Caudwell says straight out that it's aiming at commercial and military first, with recreational buyers as maybe later once testing is done. None of these three companies is really trying to sell you, the weekend boater, an engine. They're fighting a war over fleets. Navies, coast guards, fishing companies, search and rescue, harbor operators. That's the battlefield. And once you see it, the strange design choices all snap into focus. The obsession with thousands of hours of life, the alternators big enough to run a building, the single fuel safety angle, the cast iron blocks built to outlast everything. None of that is aimed at a guy who takes his boat out 20 weekends a year. It's aimed at a boat that runs 8 hours a day, every day, where downtime costs real money and a fuel bill is a line item somebody watches closely. There's even a shared engineering fingerprint that proves how narrow and specialized this fight is. Two of the three, Cox and Caudwell, both leaned on ZF to solve their drivetrain. And that articulating lower unit, where the power head stays still and only the bottom turns, shows up on the Ox and on the Caudwell both. It's the same fundamental idea Mercury used on its giant V12 gas outboard. When three rival companies independently land on the same exotic solution, it tells you they're all chasing the same demanding customer, and it isn't a casual one. So here's the payoff, the part that actually helps you. Should you, a normal boat owner, put a diesel outboard on your boat? For almost everybody watching this, the honest answer is no. And the reason is a single number: break even. A diesel outboard costs dramatically more upfront than a gas one. We're talking a price premium that can run into the tens of thousands of dollars per engine. You only earn that money back through fuel savings, and fuel savings only add up if you burn a lot of fuel. Ox's own figures put the break-even point against a gas engine at somewhere around 566 hours of running time. After that, the diesel starts saving you serious money. Before that, you're just paying more. Now think about how you actually use your boat. A typical recreational owner runs somewhere between 50 and 100 hours a year. At that rate, it would take you 5, 6, 7 years just to reach the break-even point. And that's before you factor in the extra weight forcing a bigger transom, the higher service costs, and the simple fact that there may not be a dealer within 300 miles who can fix it. For a weekend boater, a diesel outboard is a fascinating, beautiful $60,000 mistake. But flip it around. If you run a charter operation, a fishing fleet, a patrol boat, or anything that puts hundreds or thousands of hours on an engine every year, the math completely inverts. You blow past break even in a single season, and then the diesel prints money for years while the gas engines around you are getting rebuilt. That's not a maybe. That's the voodoo owner banking $150,000 a year. The engine isn't good or bad. It's right for a specific job and wrong for almost every other one. And now you know exactly which side of that line your boat sits on. So, who wins the war? Right now, Ox has the lead on range and real-world fleet hours. Cox has the production history and the military credibility from that 92 engine order. And Caudwell has the deepest pockets and the most to prove. All three are circling the same prize. The commercial and military fleets slowly waking up to the idea that they can ditch heavy inboards and complicated gas outboards for one tough diesel that hangs off the back. The one thing that would change everything, the development worth watching for, is price. The day one of these three figures out how to build a diesel outboard cheaply enough that the break-even drops from 500 hours down to 100, the recreational market cracks wide open. And the engine you can't find at any dealer today suddenly shows up on every transom at the lake. Keep an eye on which of these three gets there first, because that's the company that stops fighting over fleets and starts selling to the rest of us.